Welcome to the War Room for Restaurants, where we discuss strategy on how best to approach making your website ADA compliant. I have a number of items on the virtual whiteboard, but let's start off with the first, which is small restaurants. If you are operating a small restaurant, you likely have a simple website. If this is the case, and I'm you, right now, one of my primary options is simply taking my domain and forwarding it to my Facebook business page, where I'm going to build out the Facebook page and make it supply as much information as possible and really operate message potential customers out of the Facebook page. And the reason for this is we may not have the budget for to make our websites fully WCAG conformant. We may not be able to tolerate the risk that comes with keeping our website online. So for this reason, at least for the time being, forwarding to Facebook is a very attractive option. So when it comes to small restaurants, the websites are usually information based. They are usually 5 pages, maybe a few more, but it's usually just a small number of pages, and there aren't too many interactive elements. So option B could be, okay, well, we want to keep our website, but let's go ahead and remediate it. And the cost is likely only going to be $3,500 or less for a very simple information type of website where we just have the basics. So the basics would be, and I have this on the whiteboard, we have the address, the hours, the contact information, and the menu. That is relatively simple. The only thing we really need to be concerned about is the menu and the if there's a contact form. So any interactive elements, but we're going to limit our interactive elements and keep the cost low. And by doing this, we're going to really limit the cost of making our website ADA compliant. So if we keep everything simple, the cost is going to be very low. And so the next item I have here is interactive elements. Anytime we have an interactive elements, we make our website that much more dynamic. And so that can lead to an increase in cost. I mentioned a contact form. Just think about if you have any buttons, any check boxes, a checkout, anything where people can make a purchase, etc. Then that's an interactive element. It increases the dynamic nature of our website, and so it increases the cost. So keep that in mind. If we can keep the interactive elements to a minimum, that is going to help us with cost. Now, something that is very concerning is third-party integrations, because third-party integrations, for the most part, we cannot control the accessibility of these. So we really have to depend on the vendor, the product maker, to make this accessible. And I never trust them by default. We're going to look for a VPAT. We're going to look for an accessibility statement. We are going to ask them directly about WCAG conformance and so on. So with third-party integrations, one option here is simply to remove things that you have incorporated into your website to simplify it and make it easier and or possible to remediate for WCAG conformance. And when I say WCAG, I'm referring to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and these are the technical standards that we want to try to conform with. So when it comes to third-party integrations, many times they come with accessibility issues. If we embed them in our website, we incorporate them into our website, those accessibility issues become a part of our website. So that is problematic. So that is why we need to scrutinize any embeds, any integrations, any code that we paste, any widgets, etc. We need to be very careful with that. Also, what platform is the website built on? So if we have our own independent website, we can fully control everything. But if we are using a third-party platform like Wix, like Shopify, like GoDaddy Website Builder, any number of website builders, then we may be limited to the access. We may be limited in what we can access on the platform, so that limits our ability to remediate. So even if you hire a service provider, they can only take accessibility so far because of the platform's inherent limitations. So we need to keep that in mind. What platform are we on? If we want to keep our website then do we need to rebuild it on an independent platform? So having our own web host or having a provider host for us, and then using WordPress, for example, as the content management system and using WordPress to build our website, or another content management system. But just knowing what platform we're using is important, because we need to know whether or not we have access. And then with this next box, I've talked about this. Simplify. Let's simplify the website. Keep everything as simple as possible, because when we do, it makes it easier to be accessible. So I gave you the example of a third-party integration. Let's say we have a reservation app that is embedded in our website. Well, that complicates things, right? So if we wanted to make this more simple, then we could remove that reservation app. Obviously, you would lose the ability to make reservations off your website, but the trade-off here is less risk and less potential accessibility issues. Also, menus are concerning. Never take a picture of your menu and use that as your menu for your website, right? So, and even when we have PDFs, we need to make sure that the PDF is made accessibly. And then also, when we have the menu as text on our website, we want to make sure that we use subheadings, headings, bullet points where necessary, and we want to make sure that we have semantic meaning for our menus, and we make sure that they are easy to navigate. So menus are very, very important, and they can be a source of accessibility issues. This is why even if you have a very simple website, you need to pay attention closely to menus, because this is one of the areas that even with a simple website, you can create accessibility issues. So I mentioned some of the more complicated aspects of accessibility, and this is usually when we have a third-party app, but it can be something where we've custom coded to where we can order online, we can offer reservations, or if you are offering merchandise on your website so that people can shop on your website, if there's an actual photo gallery where someone can click on different images and open those up. These can all introduce accessibility issues, and these all make our website more dynamic. When I say dynamic, it's really getting into the functionality that we offer, the ability for customers to interact with our website. So when we have this, we make it more complicated, and that makes the remediation of accessibility more expensive. So keep that in mind if costs are a concern. Now, what I also want to talk about are the somewhat external considerations. So if we already have a website and we are ranking well for various keyword terms. So let's say we rank the best, we rank for number one for the best hamburgers in Los Angeles. Okay, so that's a really good keyword, right? And we'd want to maintain that ranking. So that's going to lean us in favor of keeping our website online and then remediating it. Similarly, if you invested heavily into your website and you have a really nice web design, and you've invested into different functionality, let's say you have a reservation system already in place, that's something I wouldn't throw away quickly. So that's something also that leans us in favor of keeping the website online. And then also another consideration here. Now, I talked about the Facebook page, and Facebook does have a good setup, an intuitive setup. People are familiar with it. So there are a lot of advantages to using Facebook. However, if we have comments enabled, or if we have reviews on Facebook that are old reviews or bad reviews, and we don't want those to represent the business. We want to have an independent, our own story being told by the restaurant owners. Then we're not going to want to use Facebook, or it's going to be less likely that we go that direction. So that's another consideration, is like, okay, what is on our existing Facebook page? Because you probably don't want to create a new Facebook page for your business, although you could. But these are some of the considerations that I'm thinking about. Now, if your website, if your restaurant is like, let's say we've got a steakhouse in Dallas, this is going to be a more advanced restaurant website, obviously. So it's going to be more expensive because there's going to be more dynamic elements in play. But if we have a smaller restaurant, right, and if you're just a very simple web restaurant, your website is very simple, then it's going to cost a lot less, And it's going to give us more flexibility in terms of what we do, what we eliminate. And then one other consideration that I don't have on the whiteboard is, what are people actually interacting with on your website? So let's say you have a website and nobody is purchasing merchandise. Well, in that case, that it may be just worth it to take the shopping cart, take the product pages offline, to remove those from the website, because those are just increasing the number of accessibility issues, and then they will add to the cost of remediating the website. It really depends on the circumstance, but the point here is going back to simplification. If we want to mitigate the cost, then we're going to reduce the number of dynamic elements, and or reduce the potential, the areas for more potential accessibility issues, especially when we don't have control over the code. So we don't have access and the ability to edit the back end of these different integrations. So those are some really important considerations for websites. And of course, there can be more, but this gives you a good idea of, okay, what size of restaurant am I? And how important is my website? How dynamic is my website? And really, where do I want to go from here? So if you need help with accessibility and ADA compliance, I offer training at adacompliance.net. This training will includes training on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So that's the WCAG course. And then also my flagship course, the ADA Compliance course, where I tell you the top 15 issues that are most commonly claimed in litigation, how to find those issues, and how to fix those issues. And then I also provide support. There's technical support if you need it through the course. You can purchase a la carte hours for developers through the course. So that's available. Also with accessible.org, we can provide all of the services you need to remediate not only your website, but your PDFs and any other forms that your menu takes. And then I can also provide consultations. So if you just like to talk to me about ADA compliance, about accessibility, about training, about uploading content, about changing your website, of course, we can go over strategy then. So I will include links to all of those resources in the description.